All right, all right. Hello, hello. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Well, welcome to another edition of the Real Stream. And today I am coming with Benjamin Lannon. You are on Twitch or Twitter and GitHub, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's LandBR literally everywhere.
All right. So, yeah. So, I guess. Well, I guess let's just start off. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Yep. So, hi, I'm Benjamin Lannon. I am a web developer up in upstate New York. And yeah. So, anything else particularly?
I guess. So, what type of web development what is your stack of choice for web development right now?
Yeah. So, at work, we're mainly just like Node, Express with fairly basic front ends, not really any frameworks. But on my side projects, I do a lot of stuff with React, a lot of stuff with Gatsby, and that kind of stack.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hey, we got people in the chat. So
Yep.
Man. Sorry if I messed that up. Pyranka. Thank you very much for super loud buzzing here. Anyway, yeah, I'm getting this weird buzzing artifacting sometimes. Let me know if it continues. Maybe we can try to figure that out. Discord videos flickering for whatever reason. Let me.
Yeah, I see that.
I think I just had to have the Discord. Hold on, I have an idea. Pop this out because the Discord audio thing is not in 100% focus.
Mm-hmm.
That or not. If I have it in focus the whole time, then happy. Okay. All right. So yeah. So I guess the first question is we're talking GitHub Actions today.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
what is GitHub Actions?
Yeah, so put loosely, I think it's good to think about like what the main purpose for them is. So when you think about your GitHub repository, there may be a lot of things that you do frequently. You may, when you open a particular issue, may add some labels to it frequently. When you have a PR open, you may want to run tests. Like it's kind of the CI/CD space, but even further beyond that. But basically, GitHub Actions is a platform that allows you to take these like abstract these workflows that you may do manually and add them into an automated way, and also keep it all within GitHub's platform. Where in the past you may have used something like Travis or Circle CI. Now all this can stuff be done directly in GitHub.
Nice. Yeah. When they first introduced GitHub Actions, that was the main appeal for me because do you get this question often, like when you're developing or you're doing stuff with GitHub Actions? Do you have people asking, why are you using GitHub Actions? Like, why not use Travis, Circle? When people suggest Jenkins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So with it, GitHub Action, like at the CI/CD, so at the CI/CD section of it, yes, you can have it where like when someone opens a PR, it will go run through like linting your tests, maybe throw a preview deploy of like a site or an application, do these kind of like CI stuff. And yes, it does provide like you can do that with Travis or Circle CI. They're great, like there are great platforms. But the nice thing about GitHub Actions is it's running on GitHub's platform, and it has so many different other triggers. So like if you're doing stuff, you want to do something like when someone starts your repo, or if someone creates an issue, or if someone like in the project section of GitHub, in the Kanban section, if someone like moves a card or makes a new column, all these various things that are built into GitHub are like really make it why it is a very powerful system.
Nice. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I will agree. um, for me, one of the things that like the first impressions when I was like, what is GitHub Actions? What is this? The one thing that I really thought was great was it's just everything's just in one spot.
Yep.
Because with all the tooling with Circle CI, or even like the security kind of tooling like Sneak or Snake,
Snake. Yep.
yeah, it's a third-party configuration that you have to manage. Where GitHub Actions is just a script file that's living in your repository. It's not aside to it. It is in there. There's you don't have to go anywhere else other than just GitHub itself to find.
Yeah, like I think the thing is that like because like some of these other platforms, you spin up your repo, and then you're like, okay, I need to go spin up this thing. So I go in. You may go over to like Circle CI or these things. You may authenticate with GitHub, but then you have to do these things in that other section, in that other app. Here, when you add the things in, it's just making a Git commit. And then when you want to see the logs, or you can like when you want to go see the logs of these action runs, depending on what kind of trigger there, it's all encompassed in one single location.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so when was GitHub Actions first introduced?
Mm-hmm. So they introduced it to basically the developer community at not this past GitHub Universe, but the one back in 2018. So it's been a little bit, probably I would say about 13 months that GitHub Actions has been kind of public in a sense. I think they have been working on it previously beforehand, but they started a private beta into a public beta into the full release for about 13 months. And they just actually released it to be generally available to anyone a couple weeks ago. So now, if absolutely anyone wants to start using Actions, they can just open up GitHub and just literally start working with it without needing to like click any buttons or anything.
Yeah, because prior to that, you had to go to the dedicated page. This isn't what it looks like now. I'm probably gonna let me turn off your video source because it's just gonna keep on flickering since it's not.
Yeah, that's fine.
So this is what it looks like now, but before this page had the big sign up button. Right, like it was like GitHub Actions.
Yep. So previously, like a little for a while, there was like a sign up now. You had to say what account you wanted to attach it to, and when you did that, then you had to basically wait for a little while, and then they would be adding people in batches. Now, and then a little bit like very close to the actual end of the beta, basically, if you click the button, you'd automatically be enrolled. Now you don't need to do anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to look up what it first looked like on the Wayback Machine, see if it. I want to see what it looks like when it first was introduced. Let's see if we get it. Okay, there you go. So yeah, so before it was just sign up for the beta, and yeah, you would have to it would slide you in everyone like batches at a time.
Yeah, and like there's like looking at this page, there is some things that have changed since the beta, like since that first beta, but there's still also a lot of things that are still around, like a lot of primitives that are still stable, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually for a full year's time, it's actually seen a pretty drastic changes from when it was first introduced to what it
Yeah,
is
definitely.
now. Um, like the first iteration, it was the what was the file type that was the first iteration was a
Yep, it was using a thing called HCL, which stands for HashiCorp Configuration Language.
okay.
It's for the people who've like used something like Terraform. That's the language that Terraform was based on, and I think they tried it out for that. But come, I think this summer, they're like, "Hey, we're re-innovating how GitHub Actions works, and now is a YAML-based format instead of HCL."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
also, yeah, and
Okay.
coming with that, like back then in the first beta, if you want to basically work with GitHub Actions, every single thing, every single step needed to be inside a Docker container. Where now you can run stuff in a Docker container, you can run a Node script, or you can just run commands on the base VM that they give you.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember. Yeah, so everything had to be in a Docker container. Was like every single thing had to be in a Docker container because
Mm-hmm.
it was like setting up a Docker image. And I guess for people that don't know what a Docker image is, it's like if you're setting up an environment, right? And in order and you start off with the very base configuration, like an empty OS, empty command line, and then you start adding on. You keep on layering on different, I guess, let's say, like different features or different add-ons. So if you needed to
Mm-hmm.
install, Ruby, or you need to install Node, so you just start with the VM or the image, and then if you need to start a specific version of Node, then you add that, and that's a layer in the cake. And then if you need to install some other scripting library like Terraform, I guess since it's right in front of me, you need to
Yep.
add that, and it ended up being this layered cake, right? Of when you're doing your GitHub Actions too, in order to add capabilities in to run any sort of script in the old HCL GitHub Actions, you
Mm-hmm.
would have to select a bunch of different Docker containers that were compatible with GitHub Actions to add those features in. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And also, like if you look at this page, they had a very visual editor where you can like you started with that gray trigger card saying like how do you want this to be run, like when do you want this to run, do you want to run on a push to your repo, do you want to run it when an issue is open, a PR is opened, uh, and then from there you added these cards which each of these were a GitHub action that did a specific task, and it was like a very visual layout. They uh, deprecated this version of it. I think it sounds from like what I've been seeing in discussion, it sounds like they're wanting to bring something like this back, but they're still like developing it.
Yeah. That's the one thing I'm pretty sure a lot of people miss was like the
It,
visual
yeah,
guide to what you're building. Like
yeah.
I don't mind scripting it out. So now it's the Java the new YAML format.
Hmm.
Let's see if they have an example. Yeah, so this doesn't exist anymore, right? This preview.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So this is what it used to have, and now it's just the standard YAML syntax here. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, there's no visual representation for this, and that's the thing I miss. Maybe not. I don't mind scripting it out, but the visual representation helped a lot.
Yeah, there like there can be a like with this new format there can like I could possibly see some ways they could implement it, but there's a lot of new features that make it much more complex.
Yeah, because they added in, I guess like different build, like so. There's the actions, so you can build,
Hmm.
you can create. So from the way I internalize it is you make a build or a
Hmm.
job, or all of its jobs, but then there's different like build steps, and then inside those build steps, right? Or is it separate jobs? Like I don't know the nomenclature yet.
So there are basically 3 layers. So when you are looking at the topmost layer, that is a workflow. It is saying like on pull request or on push, do all of these various steps. In there, you go to a layer deeper, you have a job. That is a set of steps that can be like many jobs can run in parallel. Or they can run in a order, so you can say only run this job after job A is done. Or you can have it where it's conditional. So like you can say if job A finishes successfully, run job B. Otherwise, like stop. So and then going into these jobs, each of these jobs is running on its own isolated virtual machine, where you can say either you can use Windows, Linux, or Mac, and say, hey, this is what the environment I want. And then that has a bunch of steps that you can say either run a actual GitHub action, run some scripts, run like, and basically the most down like, or just run commands like. So that's kind of the various hierarchy of a GitHub action workflow. So,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then, because of those different layers, I imagine that it's a little bit harder to visualize because, I mean, because you have the jobs, because you have the workflow, and then you have multiple jobs, but then those jobs have more nuanced information, like you were saying, different platforms. Like in this example that they have on the main site, they actually have showing like running on different platforms, and then you have your steps, and then your steps could either be, like you said, scripts, Docker, whatever, and then to visualize all those different type of dependencies and the different iterations, like
it's probably possible. It's a lot more in depth because the first version you had workflows that those still existed, but then you had one layer in, and those were all of your actions, which are all Docker containers, and they all had a fairly basic, you can say like you can run all these various images, GitHub actions in parallel, but otherwise going a step down, the only thing you can say is like these things could run next to each other, or you have to run in parallel. Like you have to run like action B needs to depend on action A, and that was it.
Yeah. Let's say so just checking the chat real quick. So Chris, thanks for stopping by. Lily, hey. Lily from the team manager for the Live Coders team. But yeah, so let's get a little bit deeper in. So you made a website called GARS, or it's GitHub Action Resource Site.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was when I was spinning up the website, I was like, let's give it a working name. Like, what is this site doing? It's a resource site for GitHub Actions. And then I was like, okay, let's make an acronym, GARS. And then for the longest time, I was trying to figure out what should I name this site, and it just stuck. So I was like, this is GARS.
I like it because it just sounds it's like slightly amusing to say. Your GARS, like close to pirate.
Yeah.
So tell me. So I have my opinions about the GitHub Actions documentation website. I want to hear yours and why you went the extra mile and decided to make a website dedicated to GitHub Actions.
Yep. Yeah. So so I don't want to like throw shade at GitHub or anything. But what I wanted to see out of GitHub Actions, like about documentation and community resources from GitHub Actions, was a lot around to deal with like both having a very ingestible amount of resources, as well as community like curated both actions and entire workflows, because GitHub Actions, like, so let me take like step like one after another. So just like digestible resources. So I want to like, for the longest time, GitHub, like they had a lot of various documentation, and I still reference it. Like there's a lot of it that's very good, but it's a lot of, hey, this is what we have. Like these are the things we have, and these are the things you can use, but not so much maybe the full like guide on how to use this one piece, or how do you or why do you like, why is it this way. So that's kind of the first part. The second part is I wanted to, like, I haven't gotten to it fully yet, but I want to like make a fully like a curation of actions and workflows, because like with something like GitHub Actions, the span of how much you can do with it is almost infinite. So like I think of it a metaphor like, you know, I have a blank painting canvas and a easel, and I have my paint. Okay, what do I do?
Yeah.
And like from that, like I could do anything. So, but if someone like was like, hey, maybe like I built something, like I painted a tree or I painted a waterfall, those could start giving me ideas to like think of, oh, maybe I could use this on some of my projects for this use case.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have that place to really curate content around such.
Yeah. That makes sense. From my personal experience,
Mhm.
yeah, like you put it, the point you made about, you know, it's kind of the docs are saying, here's what we have,
Yeah.
um, is was very gave a lot of friction to me, because like it's like, okay, this is what you have, but like it's there's so well, also it's one large page. Let me try to
Yeah.
look at.
Yeah, the specifically the workflow syntax page, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And parsing through that and trying to understand what I could do with that was
Yeah.
very difficult. I
Yeah.
mean, it took, I think you were in the chat when I was working
Mhm.
on, you know, a workflow, and you're like, oh yeah, you're like, yarn's in there already, you know, like,
Yeah. So
and like, I don't have to use this Docker image that's going to load yarn into my environment. Yarn's already there.
yeah, it's a lot like there. It's the thing of there's a lot of content, but it's the question of how do you digest it the most and the easiest to get it across that, say like here is all the various features, and here are like very bite-sized things of how you can get around it.
Yeah. It looks like they're getting a little bit better with their docs now.
Yeah, they have been making like I commend them. They've been doing a lot of work in their documentation. So like I think it's also the thing of like I was a very early adopter, so like I signed up for the beta literally almost like the day or the day after they announced it back in 2018. So I've been through this the entire way through.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, and I think it's the thing of like they released it and then they've been building the docs through the beta. So I think that's okay to understand. But they have been making a lot of work, like a lot of very good progress through all this.
Yeah. It's still fairly overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I like your approach, especially with the site, is like, it's not about this is what we have, but it's more about this is what you can do.
Yeah.
And I guess I learn a lot through the discovery aspect of things. Just like, sometimes, a lot of times, I don't know what I know. I have an idea of what I want to do. I don't know exactly how to do it. So
Yep.
browsing and perusing through other examples, or blog posts that have scenarios of what people went through
Mm-hmm.
in order to building something helps me out, because then I'm like, oh, that's what they did. What I have in my head about what I want to do kind of matches up what they did. I can potentially roll with this example.
Yep, definitely. Yep, and like yeah, it's a thing of like having a bunch of documentation is great and all, but until I see like actual use cases of other people using it for real world projects, it may not click.
Yeah.
And that's not something, I don't think that's and like that's, I think, just my personal way of like viewing documentation of like it is like it's useful to have a lot of docs, but it's cool to see, like it's good to see like real world use cases.
Yeah.
Across, like, and that's not just for GitHub Action. That's really just my like my learning style.
Yeah, so do you want to take us a tour going through your site, the site?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I guess we can go through the docs tutorials and then the trade. So if you go to the docs link there, basically this page, well, this section is a lot of that. I have a lot of so if you've ever been to Gatsby's actual documentation, this will look very, very familiar. But they have a concept called reference guides, where basically they want to pull apart each individual idea and kind of go into what each thing is.
Okay.
So like I think some good ones to go through are like try going through the JS Actions one.
Sure.
Well, actually, no. The Docker Actions may be actually better. Yeah. Because so I basically go through here and I kind of say, hey, let's go, like, how do you build a GitHub action with Docker? And I say, okay, you need to start out with an image. I talk about like here, we're going to start with a very bare bones image. We're going to throw a shell script in, and then it's going to run a bash script that says echo running from blank. And I talk about through like all the various things, like you need to make sure that that script is executable. So you will add the executable bits beforehand.
Yeah.
And then I also have like some notices, like I'm saying, hey, you can't. So GitHub Actions will actually build your Docker container every single time if you want to. But if you can build it into an image and then ship it up to some registry, that can make it even faster. And then I'm basically go through, hey, this is how you write their metadata file called an actual.yaml, which is basically says this is what the action is and how to run it.
Does this? I was gonna say, for this action, if you add the action YAML file, does this also make it discoverable to GitHub, to the GitHub Actions listing of the site, I guess?
So that is something so I do have a link right there to the thing for publishing to the marketplace. I don't think I've written that page out. So there are some pages in here that haven't gotten around to. I want to get to eventually, but there's really just so much content that I just need to work through everything. But once you have this file, when you go into a releases, like you know how in GitHub you can actually like release a project. So if you click on that releases button, like if you make a new release, it like if it notices, hey, you have an actual YAML file, it'll say, hey, do you want to publish to the GitHub marketplace? And that's really the main, like one of the main places that you can actually find actions right now.
Okay, that's actually really cool. So if you add the action YAML file, it will see you made a release. Do you want to publish it to the GitHub marketplace?
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. That's really easy.
And then so that's kind of the GitHub marketplace. Maybe you could open a new tab and go over to it. It's basically a location. For the longest time, it was a place where you could pull in GitHub apps into your various repos. But now it also has a lot of actions. So this is the main place where you can also publish actions. So if you click on their explore actions, these are a bunch of various actions that you can actually go and run. So like there's ones for like going through here, you can do stuff like check something with ESLint. Maybe you have a site built with Jekyll or Hugo. You can run those to like do the build process. Maybe you want to, like, there's one for actions for Discord. So like maybe after something is finished running, maybe you send a message to Discord and saying, hey, the build like succeeded or failed. And this is like the main place. And then as well, nice thing is you actually can add different categories based upon like what your action does, and then that can filter down different things. So, like on the left side, you can see like there's stuff for continuous integration, IDEs, deployment, monitoring, and that really allows you to like get a more condensed section because there's over 1,400 actions in the marketplace right now. So to bring it like to simplify it down to various categories allows you to really narrow down on what kind of actions you want to like really try filtering through and then be able to find through them.
Yeah, it's super nice to go through here. One thing I remember that was an issue though for at least when they first introduced the new YAML syntax was there was it was mixed with the old HCL and then the new YAML, and then the way that Docker containers passed arguments changed or something.
Yeah. So it's a little funky because like some Docker containers, you didn't have to do anything at all to make it work with the new syntax, but some you did. But now basically that actions YAML file will now describe, hey, these are various inputs I'm going to be taking in. Or if you want to say, here's any outputs that will be like giving to like for other actions if they want to use later on. This is a file that kind of describes those various things on top of telling the action where to look to run, whether it be a JavaScript file if you're doing a JavaScript action or a Docker file if it's a Docker action.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. TBD. But yeah, I like this because this really shows how. So looking at the docs, at least before looking at the docs and trying to look up how to make a Dockerized GitHub action, it was it was fairly overwhelming. There was a lot going on there. It was an easy parse. But this, the way you represent this, it looks ridiculously easy. You know?
Yeah, thank you.
It's just Docker file, script, permissions, and then
And then I think I probably could add like one more section at the bottom of this because like right under the action action YAML section, I can maybe say, hey, now this is how you pull it into a workflow. So like I could add just that one thing, and then you have a full thing from starting building the action to completely like using it in your workflows.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could link to the docs that construct the workflow. So
yeah, definitely. So
go ahead.
Yeah, so that's mainly the doc section. So it has a lot of reference guides. If you scroll down, I'm gonna have some pages also going into the various like APIs. So like the internals. So like stuff for like the workflow file, how do you use the action YAML file, environment variables, the expression syntax. Like there's a lot of things that are like very like more of these are more references rather than the so I have that. And then as well, I have a page I also have one more page for like external resources because like all the things that I put up, there always will be other people in this space. So if I can be able to take those resources and basically allow give like links to other people's resources, it really is going to like just spread the information that we have across.
I agree. Yeah, awesome actions, or just awesome any of these GitHub type repos to discover cool new tools.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So that's mainly the doc section. The tutorial section is kind of self-explanatory. I've only written one of two right now, but like the first one, I basically go through a complete workflow of saying, hey, you may have a let's give you a Node.js project, It has some code, it has some tests, you can run it locally. Now let's go step by step and show you how to set up a workflow. So anytime someone makes a push to your repo, it'll go run tests and it'll make sure that all those tests pass.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, so our scenario is npm or yarn test. And then creating, yeah. This got me when I was using the new YAML syntax. I forgot to nest it inside workflows. And I didn't know why my actions weren't running. So if anyone's watching this or listening to this, make sure that you follow this exact directory structure because it will not work otherwise.
Yeah, but basically I go through and I literally go like at the end of the day, this ci.yaml file is only like 12 lines, but I go step by step and explain each individual line and kind of the context and the ideology of like we're going to it, like we're setting up the on thing where it's the trigger. We're going to set up some jobs. We're going to talk about what a job is.
Yeah.
And then how to set up like what environment it is. And then go down and start creating some steps of like how, like inside this job, what is it we want to do and how do we actually execute that?
Yeah. So I guess just this line's basically pretty much needed 100% of the time for all our actions, right?
Yep. Actions checkout I would say it's kind of a universal action that you use usually because by default, you like when you come into a workflow run, you want to be able to check out the repository at that point in time. So whether it be like if it is a push to master, you want to get that newest commit. You want to get the git state of that newest commit. If it is a PR, you want to get the state of like what would happen when you like with that new PR code. You want to get that current state, and action checkout is a official action that the GitHub Actions team wrote to do this process of checking out to that newest state, basically.
Mm-hmm. I guess there would be situations where you wouldn't want to do this in case if you just wanted to run some sort of weird script on whenever someone pushes, right?
Yeah, like if you don't need to work with the actual code itself, you don't need to check out your code. But like for a majority of use cases, you're gonna pull it down and check out your code. Usually, you want to work with the code that's there. But yes, there are cases that you don't need to touch that usually.
Yeah. Okay. And you touched on this before, but when you're writing out these jobs, so this is the test job, anything that's run under this test is its own environment, right?
So tests, jobs, so like the job tests in its whole is running on one VM. So here it's saying like runs on Ubuntu latest. So that's spinning up its own like one single Ubuntu VM. But if we had another job running in parallel, then there would be another completely isolated VM from that.
Okay. Yeah, so you have to be aware. So if you were going to run a job that's specifically dedicated to tests, and then you wanted to run a job that was going to publish after those tests, you might need, in that separate job, you'll have to rebuild or whatever setup you did, right? Like, so let's say before you had to run the test, you had to run like yarn build or npm build or npm release. So if you had a release job, you would have to do that in that job because they're not sharing. Completely separate VMs. They're not sharing.
But a nice thing about this is yes, they are completely isolated VMs. But GitHub Actions does provide a way to be able to share code between jobs. And it's what they call artifacts. It's so if you build it, like say, maybe I'm working in a node project and I want to download and get the node modules. And then I want to have a bunch of various jobs to use those node modules, but I don't want to do npm install every single time. if you actually work through this, if you use, you can actually have a couple of use some actions to upload an artifact at the end of a job, and then that could be pulled down using a specific key that you set when you build the artifact, and that could be pulled down to any other job.
Okay. So is that fairly new? Is that, or that been around for a while?
I think that started when the YAML syntax started.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because that is something new to me about doing the artifact part. Again, I guess that falls into the looking at really overwhelmed with what it can do, that you don't realize that features exist.
Yep, and another thing that's also kind of in the same space, like that I know that you've looked into previously, is caching. So like maybe you want to go in and like you do npm install, and maybe someone pushes some code to like someone updates this stuff, but the package JSON or the package lock JSON doesn't change. Why do you need to download node modules again and again and again when you could be downloading the same exact files? And the caching action, the cache action actually allows you to be able to upload many caches that can eventually be pulled back down later on.
Yeah.
In a completely separate workflow run. So if I maybe do one run, the tests fail, I go make some changes locally, I push it up, like I push that PR again, then it would, rather than pulling down every single time, I could use the cache, and then I could possibly even skip some of the install steps. So like I could, like if we have, like we're pulling down, you could completely skip like maybe the installs, so then it would just continually speed up these things.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, like when you introduced me to the caching, I was like, this is awesome, because if, for people that aren't familiar with GitHub Actions right now, are going to try to get into it, GitHub Actions actually, and thank you for putting this on your site, because the usage limits, like it's like right there, but GitHub Actions is free to use, but it's on a minutes used.
And I actually need to update this even further, because this page, it said, so like here it's saying for each different plan you get so many minutes for, and this is for specifically private repos. So if you're working on a public repo, you never have to pay for anything. Well, I think the only thing you need to pay for is like if you're using if you like store some stuff up to like a GitHub packages, so like you can actually publish things to a registry on GitHub, that you may have to pay for, possibly. But for just normal run-throughs of actions for public repos, that's completely free. For private repos, you have this set amount of minutes. And the thing about this is these, like, even though it says 2,000, 3,000 minutes, depending on the plan, minutes are treated differently dependent on the operating system, actually. So if you're running on Linux, 1 minute in Linux is 1 minute charged. If you're running in Windows, if a Windows runner, 1 minute in Windows is 2 minutes charged. If you're running on Mac, 1 minute equals 10 minutes charged. So if you had the free plan and you're running for 200 minutes on Mac OS, you'd be out. You'd be done. So it's something to be aware of. But another thing, and caching can help this out, but another thing that's actually very useful is when you start it out, when you are doing this, if you want to actually say, I have maybe some private dependencies that I want to pull down, but I don't want to have on GitHub's servers, you can actually use a thing called a self-hosted runner. So no matter what kind of operating system, no matter what environment, if you have like a server, if you have a VM, if you have a Raspberry Pi even, you can download this runner, spin it up, register it with GitHub, and then anytime a workflow starts running, it will send jobs down to that runner instead. It can send those jobs down to the runner along either instead of or alongside your other hosted runners.
Yeah, so how long have they had that? Because that's new to me.
Yeah, that's very new.
Very new.
Like that, I would say probably would be within the last month, probably.
Yeah, because that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, but and the nice thing, and basically they're saying, hey, because you're already paying for the costs of your machines, whether it be an on-prem server or a VM somewhere up in the cloud, you're already paying for those costs. So they're saying we're not going to charge you anything extra. So it's a back and forth.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any restrictions, like, because I would imagine that there has to be some API communication, so you just fall under the TOS for API usage. But I would imagine you wouldn't really hit the limits. But
yeah, so I think there are certain things. Can you go back to my usage limits page? I may have written stuff about that there.
Yeah.
I might have. Yeah, so if you go there and you scroll down, yeah, right there. I'm basically saying, like, so there's a certain amount of jobs that you can run in parallel at the same time, but also included in that, you can make 1,000 API requests to GitHub's API an hour.
Okay.
So, and that gives you a lot of room to work with, unless you're doing something like, unless you are Node.js, like the Node.js repo, where you're getting like hundreds of pull requests or such. For most people, they're not going to hit those caps.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just taking a look at the the costing. I was just thinking right now, to simplify this, they should move away from minutes for what you have for running to maybe a points system instead.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you have you have a certain amount of points, and then certain environments cost points. Yeah. Because doing this minute math stuff is annoying.
The thing is, I didn't learn about the like 1 minute equals 10 minutes in macOS until I was running something on a private repo, testing on all 3 operating systems. I opened up the pricing page and it said, hey, you've already used 600 out of the 3,000 allocated minutes this month. And I'm like, what? So it's something to be aware.
Yeah. It's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like, especially for people that would want to move their build workflows to maybe like build executables in the different, Mac and Linux Windows. Be aware of that. Maybe you shouldn't be running it on beta builds, all the beta builds that you're pushing up.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah, it's a thing of like, you should be aware of the usage costs, and also like, hey, if you're doing this on private repos, maybe think about if you have a spare VM, maybe a spare machine on-prem, to really reduce those issues. Now, there are some things you have to think about in these instances, because like the self-hosted runners, you have to manage those environments. So if you if you clone down some files, if you make some changes and you do push stuff up, after the workflow is done, those files will still just be existing on the environment, where in the hosted runners that GitHub provides you, they will clean those out every single time. They're basically they'll spin up the VM, run it, and destroy the VM at the end of execution.
Yeah.
Where in a self-hosted runner, you have to think about these things of like, oh, I'm going to be doing these things, I'm going to be creating files. Maybe at the end, maybe you could do some stuff for cleanup inside the action, or maybe some stuff around the runner. And maybe in the future they will look into like adding some stuff. So if you're running stuff on the actual machine, it can do stuff around this. But as well, like there's other ways to think about this. Like you could do something. You could work with a Docker, like you work with Docker containers. So anytime you're doing some like work, it's inside a container that will be deleted after execution that you don't need to worry about.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like I think we keep us saying there is a lot of depth into this platform and a lot of things that you need to think about when using it. But I want to basically like what I've been doing is I want to basically demystify all the various details and make it much more consumable to an average person saying, I want to add some automation into my workflow. How do I do this?
Yeah. And it's ridiculously is easy to do. Like,
yeah, indeed.
It's actually, at least for me, like I get excited when it works, you know, and it's like, oh my God, it's automated. I guess going down in your tutorial, testing the workflow. Right now, testing workflows for GitHub Actions is pretty much you ship code or you just push. I guess if it's a push workflow, you just have to push code and see if it works, right?
Yep. So the way it works, so currently you have to kind of ship to production. Like even though that's something like it right now, it is a push to production kind of scenario of actually testing it. And for some use cases, that's kind of okay. Maybe you're working like that could be fine. But to also think about it, I think possibly in the future, as now we have these self-hosted runners, if you could make a if either GitHub makes a thing where basically you can mock like triggers, so like you can mock a new pull request or you can mock an issue comment. If you can mock these various things and then send these things to the self-hosted runner, there could be a possibility that we could just do all these things completely locally on your machine when you're doing development. But currently, right now, we can't.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they like just spitballing here, but if they put that self-hosted runner kind of like in a lightweight Docker image or something like that, so that if you were developing locally, I could just quickly sanity check whether this would work locally before I push it.
So spin up the workflow, like spin up the runner, and then have some like scripts that you can run and say like, here's the mock pull request. What happens when we go through it?
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing that makes it scary is, you know, when you're running tests and stuff like that, that's fine, you know. But if you make a workflow that's going to do a release to npm,
a release to npm, or deploying like resources to Azure or AWS, like, and these not just a staging environment, but a production environment. Yes, I can see where a debugging methodology all locally will become very beneficial.
Yes. But thank you to follow Frackberg, and hey, Robert Tables, how's it going? Yeah, so that's the one thing that was scary for me, was doing the release for npm, because if it didn't work, or if it did work but it bundled, but I misconfigured and it didn't like include what was in the distribution folder or whatever, then I have a release on npm that does not work. And
that's the scary part. So but as well, we're like, even though GitHub Actions is fully out now, it's still very early in its infancy. So I think over time, a lot of these various things will get better over time.
Yeah.
And
then so in your example, we're going through and running the tests, and then, you know, you're even showing the error scenario.
Yeah, I basically say, hey, go break something and see that, make sure those tests actually break.
Yeah.
and then I can say like, then if you go revert those changes, it'll be all green. And then actually, I basically end the tutorial off saying, hey, there's actually a way that as a maintainer of a project, you can add, say, you can tell the NEPR, don't merge this in unless there are certain status checks that pass, and those include the various jobs that you create inside GitHub Actions.
Yeah. One thing I would say is you should probably make a note that this feature set is only available to Pro.
Is it?
Yeah, the restriction, the branch protection, I believe, is a Pro feature only.
Okay, I'll look into that and see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I made that assumption too, and when I was when I was looking at it, and I was like, why don't you have branch protection? And it was a Pro feature.
Yeah, because that's a very like that's
protected branches.
If only.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like that's a nice little thing that I can. Yeah,
make those changes.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is if you scroll down to the bottom of this page, actually,
oh yeah,
if you actually scroll down all the way to the bottom of the page, you can actually see that there's a thing called edit this page on GitHub. Like this is all available on like the entire site is actually just a bunch of markdown files in a GitHub repository.
Nice.
So like the nice thing, and I think I actually got a pull request a couple days ago making some changes. So I'm like, if there's anything that looks off, if there's anything that's incorrect, feel free to submit a pull request.
Will do.
Yeah.
I guess talking about the site itself. So, this is editable. So you can edit it on GitHub because the markdown files are just here. So, I guess what did you end up using to build out this website and, make it easy as a markdown file is the page itself?
Yep. So, the site itself is built with Gatsby. So for people who may not know what Gatsby is, it is a site renderer that is built on top of React and GraphQL. So with that, they have a very diverse ecosystem of plugins, where here I'm using a plugin. So I say Markdown, I'm actually using a thing called MDX, which is basically Markdown with ability to add MDX add React components into your Markdown.
Okay.
But the nice thing about this is I can basically then say, collect all, go find. I can say here's a folder. Look into this folder, and if you see anything here, I'm gonna basically take all the files in this folder and then start generating a bunch of pages out of these templates. Like using a template saying, here's React page, here's the content that's going in, and how do you go from taking your Markdown and actually making pages and routes on the site.
Very cool.
So,
and that's native to, and that's built into Gatsby itself.
It's so the building of the pages is built into Gatsby. The MDX is it's actually a first class plugin.
Okay.
So it has first class support in Gatsby. But there are some extensions you need to pull down to set it up. But I wanted to make this it's a very nice workflow that basically I can say, hey, if you don't want to tinker with the site, but you do want to modify the contents, it's just Markdown. It's a very standardized format that people can just go in and edit very easily.
Yeah, and it's a very smart thing to do, because given that you want this site to be also be a part of the community, anyone can go in and just edit a line, do a pull request, maybe include a link, and there's no you could just kind of do it on. You don't have to clone it and pull it down and do anything. You could just You can just fork it,
Mhm.
do it on everything on GitHub itself, and then make a pull request in.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and then as well, like this is getting a little meta, but I'm building a site talking about GitHub. Like the way I actually build this site is using GitHub Actions. So I'm building a site about GitHub Actions by using GitHub Actions.
Oh,
So if you actually go into here and you go to the workflows page, I have quite a few different types of workflows to go through here. So I have one for like running the build running a build every single day. I have one like when you make a push to the repo, it'll run. I have one for like if you have like I have a URL that I can push, and if I have a certain like token, it will build for me. But I basically go in here, I run yarn build, and then I use Netlify's CLI and just push it up to their CDNs.
gotcha.
Yep. And then if you see there, I actually have a couple of tokens. One of them is that FaunaDB token. If you go into that changelog updates YAML file, this is actually this was a custom workflow that I worked on, where I basically say, hey, go. So if you actually go back to the site for a second, and go to that changelog. So the third link in the nav bar. I actually have a list of yep. So I actually have a listing of every single thing from GitHub's, like if you go to the link all the way to the top, github.com blog/changelog, that is GitHub's blog in general. But I wanted to basically take all of the content specifically for GitHub Actions and centralize it to one place. So what this workflow I built does is anytime, like I think I do it like every like 2 or 3 hours, but every time it runs, it goes to this page, it scrapes it, checks if there's any new items. If there are any new items, I will send it up to Fauna. I will save it in Fauna, and then I have I have an output from this GitHub action that says, in that second one, I would say build only if there are new posts. So in there, I say if steps.changelog pull.outputs.new Fauna posts added is not equal to 0. So if there are new posts, then I would go rebuild the site.
Now, wow.
Yeah. But it's the thing of like it's a thing I've kind of been thinking about of like if you when you are working in GitHub Actions, don't run the things that don't like if you have various steps that are dependent on other things, if those things don't happen, don't run the rest of the code. Like run as little as possible in these environments.
Yeah. Yeah, because like for the like if you're running right now it's configured so that like if you're running a job, if one step fails in that job, it will just fail the entire job, right? Like
yeah. So. Yeah, but you can actually do things as like on top of this. So if you, for instance, I think if you actually go to my main page on like if you go to my main GitHub page, go into Portfolio Gatsby, and go into any of the workflows in that page. That's main site. So yeah. Yeah. So if you click on that first link, Portfolio Gatsby, yep, and you go to the workflows, I actually have a thing where I actually do some conditional. Yeah, so this is just my site, but if you actually go back to the GitHub repo and click on the workflows section, and so I actually have a couple things of saying, hey, I'm going to go do a build. So this is actually very similar to that other thing. If I say yarn build, I do the build, But after that's done, I actually have 2 additional steps of saying, hey, if the previous step was successful, turn a light green. Otherwise, if it was failed, turn it red. So like this is kind of a way that you can do like if else statements in GitHub Actions.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you can have like, yeah, if else, or kind of like try, catch, whatever you want to conceptualize it. If you want to catch a failure.
Yeah, so like maybe there are like it's a failure and there's a couple like there's an output maybe there's a like you push your like failures, like you're doing something and there's failures and you want to send a URL to maybe your Slack channel if there's a failure. Then you can have it only run when something fails.
Nice.
Yep.
That's really cool. I mean, like, and I think the if success failure thing, that wasn't when it. Did they add that in when it was first released, when they did the YAML, or did they add it in just shortly after?
I think it was around the time when they added the YAML. I'm not certain, but like I think it was around that time.
Yeah, I remember there was kind of like a different way you had to check. Like you had to do
so
like...
there's many various. So the if is like you can use a expression syntax to say like when you work on various things, like if you can, there's various different ways to it, but they have these nice functions to say if a previous step failed or succeeded, do this. I think if you don't have a if statement at all, it says if, like I think it's just if always, which means just run it every single time. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you kind of want to highlight about the work you've been doing or about GitHub Actions that you personally think is like really cool, or upcoming things that you know of or would like to see?
So I think with this kind of stuff, like one of the things I'm really wanting to further dive into is having like these having like at least one of the things I'm interested in is this idea of doing less and making sure like when you do multiple runs, like caching, adding artifacts, this kind of space of just optimization around these things. I think will be very beneficial because like you can pull things up, and then from these, I'm also very interested in like further testing, using GitHub's API using all this because like for instance, for some of my actions, I've actually gone in where like there is a trigger called schedule where you can say based on a cron top, like a cron syntax, you can say like maybe every 5 hours, maybe every day, all these various things. You can actually say go run this task. And I've done stuff where I've pulled down the repo, I've made some changes, and then I recommit it all inside that workflow run. So I am letting GitHub Actions make commits on my behalf. So it's a thing of like now thinking about like various things that like, there's things that are simple that I could do commits, but like what if I can automate even that portion of working through it?
That is an interesting thing. Because like one thing that I always kind of forget to do when I'm like dealing with npm packages is like on my own personal stuff is when I do a push, when I do a push to master of features, and like it's just gonna be like I forget to do an incremental patch. So it'd be interesting that if there's the release version, if it did a commit to adjust the version for me.
Yep. So there are some there are, I think I have not used them, but there are tool chains that actually you can do this with GitHub Actions. So have you heard of semantic release or conventional commits or anything of that matter?
Yep.
Yep. So for those who don't know, conventional commits is a way to basically say, like label your commits to say, this is fixing some piece of code, or this is this is just a chore. Maybe this is adding a new feature, or this is a break and change. And based upon those tags, you can figure out, okay, I have since my last merge, I have just feature requests. So then I only need to bump the minor, or maybe there's a break and change. So I need to bump the major, and all this can be done completely. Yep. Robert Tables was saying commit as then is very similar, where you can basically then you don't need to worry about, oh, is this a patch release, or is this when it gets to that point, you don't have to figure it out. And then as well, you can actually also build release notes out of all of these commits for you. So it can take a lot of the things of a lot of their various intricacies and make it much easier to manage. Now, a thing that you have to I think is good to think about this is having when you're doing a lot of these automations, having a middleman, which being a maintainer, to actually make sure that everything's good. So rather than when you push to master, have when you do all these things, maybe you push and then it will do all these things. It will make the release notes, and then it will make a PR for you that then you can say hit click merge, and you could make sure that all the contents in there are okay before you actually merge and publish npm.
Yeah, that's exactly along the lines I was thinking. It makes a beta, a pre-release. Basically, it makes a pre-release of that version where then you approve it. You can test it and then approve it, and then merge that into master, and then you can do some sort of manual process just to make sure that this is cool.
Yeah, it's a thing of it's if everything were perfect and if we never had bugs, this automation would be fine to just do automatically, never manual intervene. But we're human. We have issues. We have bugs. Something's gonna likely arise. So if you're gonna have that safety net that, oh, here's a pull request, have a maintainer check it over, make sure it's okay before actually doing the publish. Then you can have a sense of clarity that yes, this is actually all right to merge it.
Yeah, and then Robert brings up a good point about getting the mundane stuff out of the creative mind if they can be handled by machines. Yeah, you just want to get rid of. Exactly. You want to try to optimize and get rid of the mundane tasks that that just kind of cycle, that ingest a lot of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. So we got some time. So if you have some time off, also we could try to make it a GitHub action.
Yeah, definitely.
How would you want to go? So at this point, we're just kind of winging it. So everyone in the chat too. How would you want to go about creating a GitHub action? Should we just create a new repo, or should we try to bolt it onto something that already exists?
I think maybe just a new repo too, just test stuff, things out is usually the easiest way of working with this. Because we could maybe have something when we maybe when we do a push, something happens, and we don't need to worry about what what is part of the push. We can just do something on every single push, and then you could build that into your process.
Nice. All right, let's go through the GitHub UI. My trackpad has, I don't know if you noticed, but my trackpad's been on the fritz today. It keeps on connecting and disconnecting.
Yeah. Well, actually, luckily yesterday, my for the longest for the past few weeks, I have not been able to stream because my GPU a couple weeks ago decided just it was done. So I had to army it out. I had to wait a couple weeks. Finally got a replacement GPU and PC's back up and running. So it's been interesting.
I mean, that's scary stuff too.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to stream on your own.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's create an example repository. And yeah, let's make a first GitHub action. So
Yeah.
what is your preferred method? What's your workflow if you're going to start creating a GitHub action?
So I guess a good way to think about this is the nice thing about GitHub Actions is you can either have it be where the repo itself is just one action and has documentation about the action and the code for the action, and that's self-contained. Maybe you have a project where you have like business logic specific, like actions specifically for that project. So like it doesn't make sense to have it decoupled from the project. You can have the actions located inside the actual repository of your project where you're using it. And then with that, you also have all the various things of, do I want to run this? It's a thing of, do you want to have it as just code itself in the repository, in the workflow, or do you want to have it as a self-contained thing of the saying, I'm just going to go run this action, and then you can go look at either the Docker file or the node script, figure out how it's going to run.
Mm.
So I would say, at least for now, just thinking of like the easiest way to get started. Let's maybe just go in and let's try out what I'm saying. Let's try a JavaScript action. We could just start something very similar, very simple,
Okay.
and kind of work our way through that. So if you could we possibly like close this down and maybe open up a live share session?
Sure thing. Let's do it.
Cool.
As long as my mouse responds to me, please. Yeah. This Magic Trackpad is like probably 7 years old. So,
oh dang!
I mean, it's lived for a long time, but apparently
that's a good longevity.
But apparently, it's starting to reach its ends potentially.
Hmm.
All right, so git clone.
Yep.
And so we want to go into our GitHub Actions example. There we go. We have a fresh repository. And let me open up VS Code. And then let me switch to a secret screen since we're going to be setting this up for live share.
Yeah.
Okay. Setting sync is reapplying stuff.
Yep. Did you actually hear that the GitHub team's actually looking into getting setting sync built in natively to GitHub to VS Code?
Someone was telling me that. Someone was telling me exactly that.
Yeah, they're looking into basically making setting sync I'm not sure if they're going to be pulling in that specific, like this setting sync extension, or making something similar, but basically they're making a setting sync experience first class in Visual Studio Code.
Apparently my live share got uninstalled when I synced my settings. That is not fun. Okay. I need to log in with GitHub.
Okay.
Sign in with my GitHub, please. I like how they don't ask you for a lot of information. Like on the authorization screen, they're like, we only want nothing else. We're not trying to authorize and grab everything about GitHub. We only need this one thing.
Yeah, it's that is useful that they don't say like, hey, and they could add some stuff to give some intelligence to like in the experience, but when you're just working with live share, all you need is like basically like to authenticate and get on your way.
Yeah. All right, so the link your way in the terminal, or in, I mean not in terminal, but in a Discord. So if anyone else is lurking in the chat and has questions, feel free to ask at any time. Don't be a stranger.
Okay. Trying to again. Join. Let's see. There we are. Mission not found. Just not share. Give me 1 second.
No problem. Same link is valid. No luck.
Is it possible that it's because you're using insiders and I'm just using plain old Visual Studio Code?
Maybe. I mean, that could be a possibility. Actually, that is.
Yeah,
I haven't had that issue yet, but that could maybe something changed since since they released. I can go ahead and download the regular VS Code.
Okay.
Let's go download non. Yes.
Yeah.
Download Max, stable build. Luckily, VS Code is lightweight.
Yeah. I'm not sure how far we'll be able to get, but hopefully we'll be able to get like something set, like an action up and running, set up a very sample workflow up, and then at least see that when we run the workflow, it will trigger the action.
Yeah, we can do like an iterative approach, start bare minimum, and then build on it as we go through.
Yep, correct. Yep.
All right, I'm gonna have to reinstall, so be right back, everyone. Or at least secret screen is all you get for now. Live share. This is going to be the only extension installed.
Yeah, sometimes that's all you need.
What was it? Yeah, so GitHub and Microsoft. Or was it? There was someone. Oh, Facebook. Facebook is partnering with Microsoft to make VS Code live share. I guess they're switching to VS Code from Atom, and they want to further improve on live share to make it way better for them.
Yeah, which it's gonna be interesting to see what that kind of partnership is, because like I would say like LiveShare already does a lot of things that seem to be just magic. So to say like to go even further, it's gonna be interesting to see like where they take it.
Yeah, a little hazy. app controller, blah blah blah. Okay, so we start a collaboration session. Yes.
Okay.
And there is the copy link. Let's see if that works.
Let's see.
It's going well, Lily. We're just trying to get started with a pairing session. I almost used my Stream Deck.
Okay. Let's try this. Join. Oh, here we are. There's a join. Okay, so inside VS Code, there's a thing that says join collaboration session. Like, because I was trying to do where I was going to the link, and it tries opening it. But in VS Code itself, there is a button where you can say join collaboration session and drop an URL.
Oh, because the URL open to VS Code.
It was saying it was trying to find VS Code, but it couldn't find it. So instead, I had to just go into it manually.
All right. Okay. Well, now we're cooking with gas. So
yep. So like, if we go into the README, I can make some changes, and those should appear.
Nice. Here we go.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's start with literally. Let's start with a very simple hello world. So I'm going to go into into the GitHub Actions example, and I'm going to create a folder called GitHub Actions, and let's call it test action. So I'm going to create that folder, and in here. I'm gonna actually. Can you possibly open up a terminal?
Yep. See.
Yep.
Actually, share a terminal.
Yeah.
Read and write. There we go.
Okay. So we go to GitHub Actions test action. We're now in that actions environment. I'm just gonna do a npm init -y so we can set up the environment. So now there's a package JSON. I don't think we need any packages yet. So for now, we'll just leave it at that. And now we're going to create two files, index.js. And this is going to be where our actual code runs. So to start out, let's do literally the simplest thing we could have possibly imagined doing. So in here, just console like hello world.
Okay, so just going in here and just going. Ooh, that is.
Yeah. Yep. So console like hello world. Save that, and now we're gonna go in. Now I would say, so this if we run it locally, if we do like node index.js, it'll say hello world. So we got a script.
Yeah.
Now we want to run that node script in our action, and we want to tell our action, hey, how do you find this particular action? So how we do that is with the action YAML file.
Okay.
So I'm going to create that action YAML file. And in here, there's going to be a bunch of various, there's only a couple required fields that you need. So the ones you will need, I'm just going to put them in here, is name, is description, is, I'm pretty sure it is called using, I believe. One moment. Just gonna. The best way to figure these things, like to remind yourself of how things work, is to go look at how you're doing currently in another action yourself.
Yeah.
So name, description, and runs. So
Okay.
these are the, well, and then in runs, we're going to have using and main. So this is all that we kind of really need. So I would say go ahead and like, let's just give it a name and description. Those can be both strings, just kind of saying like what the action, like give it a name and give it like a description of what it is.
So, I mean, just hold hello world and then example, hello world running a JavaScript,
Yep.
GitHub action.
Yep. So now using and main are kind of saying, hey, what environments are we going to be in and where are we going to try finding that? So for using, since this is node, the string that we use, so using could be either one of two things. It could be either Docker or it could be node 12. So what that is node 12 is saying this could be a JavaScript action and it's going to be running on node 12 itself.
Gotcha.
So if you put node 12 for using.
Is it just node 12 or node dash 12?
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah, it is node 12 without a dash. And now you want to tell it where is the file that what is the file that we want to run? And this is relative to our folder, so index.js is all we need.
Gotcha.
Yep. So technically, now we have a fully functional JavaScript action. That's it. So now save this. Actually, I would say save it, commit it, and then we will. Let's actually go back up to GitHub and use their workflow editor, because they have some nice auto completion. So when we're working through here, we can actually it's fairly easy to work with. Yep. So now we're gonna get push.
That we're pushing master. And
yep. So now it's open master.
Goes.
Okay. So now, yeah. So now let's just go back to the GitHub. Let's go to that repo, and now we want to go over. So we see now we have our test action file. So now if we go into the actions pane, we can now just start working. Like we can start building a workflow. So if you click on the actions pane, this is kind of saying, hey, we see you like. The nice thing is it gives you some nice things of saying, hey, we see you have Node.js in here. You could set up a thing by default, but instead of doing that using their templates, if you click up in the top right corner, it says set up a workflow yourself. So let's try that.
All right. Now we have our workflow.
Yep. So I would say delete everything. Delete everything from line 13 down. So like the so delete everything after like the checkout step. Yeah.
All
So
right.
now so now we can go in and now we can say, hey, we have a environment here. When every time someone pushes, we're going to run this job. It's going to run on Ubuntu. We're going to first check out the repo. And now we want to say, let's go use our action that we just built. So you're going to create another step. We're going to use uses again. But now we're going to give it the path to where it will find this action.
Mm-hmm.
So since this action is existing inside our existing repository, it will be a relative string. So it will be so if you do / and then the location of where we had it, so like ./.github /actions /test-action. That will basically say this is where our action lives, and it will, like, we don't have to say /action.yaml. It will go find that action on YAML, and then it will go figure out. It will go find, say, okay, based upon this data, this is what we need to run.
Action.
Yeah, action. So without the S.
Cool.
So yeah. So now we have this thing. We're saying we're going to check it out, and now we're going to go run this action. So if we actually start the commit, I think it should just start, like it should run and go.
Yeah. So. There's our set up our workflow and commit. And then after we do that, then we would go to the Actions tab where we can see the workflow once it kicks off.
Yeah. It sometimes takes a little bit to, like, it sometimes takes a few seconds to kick off. But yep, so right there we see our CI. So if we click on that, we can actually see the workflow running, like actually running before us. So it'll first like set some stuff up. But you can see there, hello world.
Yep. And then we can expand on these and look at exactly what it was doing. I like this UI because this UI is also very similar to Circle CI, where you can easily expand on this stuff. And it actually runs very fast. I mean, it ran within seconds, which is amazing.
I think from what I remember, the Actions runner is actually a hard fork of the Azure DevOps runner.
Ooh.
So I'm pretty sure they're based upon the same software underneath that.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I think a couple of days ago, I actually found out that is actually based upon it's basically a .NET application. So it's already because I was looking and there was some error in the runner, and I was like, wait a minute, this is C#, like iDictionary or I things. And I'm like, that's C#, isn't it? But yeah,
I've watched enough C# Fritz to know what this error means.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, so now I think let's do one more thing before we wrap things up. Let's wrap this hello world like in something like let's go find like a Kause node module or something, and let's go try adding this like adding a thing wrapping around with like something in Kause.
Yeah, let's totally do that.
Yep. So
I love that idea.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, there's a thing called Kause.
Yep, it's just called Kause. I know about it because this is a tangent, but because of the npx utility I made, the npx Kause, I used. You see, it like linked right away, but I used their CLI file to first look at how to build an npx CLI script for my Twitch info script.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I looked at that was like one of the very first examples I looked at to see how difficult it was to make something for npx. But
okay. So I'm gonna just go in and copy some code from there. I'm just gonna copy some code from their README into our index.js file, so we can just get things up and running.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So let's switch this back to our hello world. So we got this. And well, first of all, let's go git pull. Just so we can pull down our workflow file so we don't have like any git conflicts or anything. But one thing to note is here we have this code. But the thing is, by default, GitHub Actions will come into here and it'll say, okay, var cause equals require cause. When it runs, it'll say, well, what is cause? What is that? I don't know about that. So with that, you need to actually install. There's many ways to do it, but you basically need to have the node modules as part of kind of your output in some manner. And the way that usually it's easy to do this is basically just bundling up the code.
Okay.
So let me go. So you can really use any bundler you want. I'm gonna go pull down. Let's try it with Parcel because Parcel is a very like no config needed setup.
Yeah.
So
We could. I wonder if it's possible to use was it ECM or ESM?
Ecosync modules.
Yeah.
So yeah, because they were released yesterday for Node.
Yeah, officially put it in there.
Yeah. So it would be lovely if we could do that, but this currently runs on Node 12. So they still have to backport that back.
Yeah, that's true. Darn.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so we want to let me actually let me just ring through some stuff here. So I think we can just go in here and we can npm I. Let's add this as a dev dependency of parcel bundler. So we're gonna add parse. I don't know what that is. Those snares. Okay. I'm gonna stop that.
Yes.
So I don't know what's going on with that, but okay. Let's do the. Okay, so rollup actually. Here's another bundler. Let's roll up as so yarn npm I-d rollup. So I'm gonna just try pulling down rollup. Okay, so we have rollup here, and in the package JSON, I'm gonna create in the scripts field. I'm gonna create a thing called build, and in here in build, I'm gonna just say rollup. I'm gonna say get the file that we want, so index.js. Format that we want to use is common.js because this is just Node. We're using require and all. And we're going to say file. I'm going to do dist/index.js. And I think this should work. So now if I do npm run build, we now have this dist directory. And if we open up this index.js file, well, that didn't pull down the node script we want. Can import. Let's see. Come on. Okay, so this isn't pulling in that way. Do you mind if I just pull in a Webpack config, like just so we can get something?
That is fine with me.
Okay, so I'm gonna npm remove parcel, not parcel, roll. So we're gonna remove that again. We're gonna delete this dist folder. GitHub Action. Yeah, because like it's, I found like it's a fairly simple Webpack config, but I don't know why. Because like sometimes some of these bundlers don't work as expected. So npm i-d webpack webpack CLI. So let's go down and get the two things. Is it ours? I'm hoping it's not our package JSON that's breaking.
It'd be surprising if it was, given that we use npm to generate the package JSON.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so we got that there. I'm just gonna remove that. And then instead of do all this thing, I'm just gonna say Webpack. I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna go grab the config. And copy this. New file, webpack.config.js. Gonna paste this code. Okay, so this is the config that we need for here. That basically we say we want to run this in production. The entry point that we have is index.js. Where it's going to be pushed out is this folder again. And this is going to be running Node.
Yeah.
So now if we do npm run build again, it's going to say Webpack.
So I think it blew away.
Oh no.
Cowsay.
Cowsay is using ES modules.
There might be something else we can use, maybe.
Say Node. I'm just gonna see if we can if they have a common JS version. Yeah. Yeah, let's find something. Do you know of any other things I've kind of just maybe wrapped something in?
I can't remember. There was some ASCII art ones. I think it's text. ASCII. I was looking at this stuff the other day. Figlet? Looks like Figlet might be one we can use.
Figlet, data.
Publish.
Okay, yeah, that looks fine. Yeah, so let's yarn npm add.
I'll copy and paste the Figlet example into our index.js.
Figlet. Yep, and then hello world. Yep, so we added Figlet. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna run npm run build again. Okay, there we go. Now in this, if you open up that index.js file, it's gonna be a bunch of code.
Yep.
And that's because this is a compiled file. So, but now we have the Figlet module alongside our actual code all in one bundle.
We'll be able to test this out by going to node dist xjs.
Yeah.
Hey, no such file or directory. What? It's
Action, just action font standard. A standard.flf. Does it require a font?
That's weird.
Does it need a font? We don't have font. Interesting. What if I don't want the font?
Standard. So what looking for standard font? Oh.
Let's see.
You can try different.
Yeah.
Let me try something different. It's a npm remove Figlet, and then I'm going to do npm.
Actually, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to do a different package.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because we only got like a minute, 2 minutes left.
Yeah, we can go a little bit over.
And then this is hello. Okay, so npm build.
Npm run build.
I forget we're not using yarn.
Yeah. Okay, so now if we do node, yeah, that one.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. So now we updated. So now we created a bundle that we're gonna ship up with our code, which they have like. It would be nice if you could have a thing saying, "Here's the node modules, install it for me," but there currently is no way to do such.
Mm-hmm.
But we have this. So we have this file. So now the only thing we need to do left is in action.yaml. We need to tell it, hey, don't look at the index anymore, index.js anymore. Look at dist index.js. Look at our bundle instead.
Like that.
Yep.
Update the path.
And now, yep. So now let's try saving, committing, and like seeing if it works.
The bundling, adding a package. Run.
Yeah.
Actions. Push that up. And
so since we just did a push, let's go over to that. Let's go back to the Actions tab, and it should have automatically triggered a new workflow for us.
Yep, there it goes.
Yep.
It should be done in like 5 seconds.
Yeah. Go.
That's awesome. So that's a little tidbit I did not know, especially I mean, given that I didn't know about the GitHub Actions, but the fact that or the JavaScript Actions is that you have to actually bundle it all together, like you're actually distributing application for it to run.
Yep, correct. Which yes, and I think like it looks like some of these various things like you have to add some like sometimes bundle in additional stuff into like using Webpack or Rollup or something. So you have to be aware of that. But for like we can see like for some things you can just give it a very basic bundle like Webpack config and say go bundle this up, and it should just work.
Yeah.
So yeah. but we got it. So now we tested it out, and now we can pull. So now we put in some node modules, and now it's like we were able to like, and we can continue. Basically, we can keep on adding more stuff into here, and add more and more things to make it like make an action that could be very beneficial for any repository.
Yeah. All right, that was awesome. That was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
My first JavaScript GitHub action.
Yeah, but like to show like it's really not much because you're basically you created a folder, you dropped in a index.js file, you wrote some code. You had to bundle it up, but like a lot of projects nowadays do bundle things up. And then we just created that action YAML file that says, hey, this is what we want to look at. But otherwise, and then we created a workflow file that said, hey, go use this thing. But now we have a fully self-contained action.
Yeah.
So we could take, and now since this is on a public repo, you could pull this into any workflow, and it would go in and say hello world in a box format, like in your workflow.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can refer to this workflow from any other workflow. Just pointing.
Yep. So if we were saying use it from another one, all you need to do is if you go back to if you go up to the actual if you go back into your code and look at the workflow file, yeah, if you look at the YAML file, you can see that the we're saying like jobs build, we say uses actions / checkout v1. So we could do similar with this one. So if we were saying we're using a different place, all you need to do is replace the dot at the beginning with talk to me gooseman / like whatever the repo name is, and then it would just like it would function because it was basically we're saying here's where you need to look at to kind of go down and get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you don't put a yeah, and then like / example, like GitHub Actions example or whatever the repo name.
Like repo name. Not repo.
Yeah, so it'd be like talking to Gooseman / yeah. But I think if you don't give a thing like an @ sign and something after, I think it uses master, which for some things that like at some points that's for testing that's okay, but like sometimes you usually want to pin down saying like, hey, here's a tag version, like here's a release, and like you want to say like this is like the new this is this version, because like if someone like if you're using a third party and you say master, what happens if they then maybe take some secret credentials in your area in your project and then to ship them off to somewhere else?
Gotcha.
Like, so you want to have like you could say yes, I am okay with using this particular version because I know this works, I know what it does, and like then and I know even if they like make some malicious changes in master, you need to manually update your workflow before actually doing stuff in before it actually would trigger in your actual work.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up. The fact that there are security implications to be aware of with GitHub Actions, like an action that you're pulling in could try to sniff for private keys and pull that out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the nice thing about so GitHub Actions, there actually is some nice things. So like if you, for instance, you don't want third party actions, you can actually go into the repo and turn the strictness down to like I only support actions that are inside like my org or my repo, or if you don't want actions at all, you can completely turn it off. So it does provide like a layer that like if you don't want to pull in third party, you don't need to. So yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our talk and I guess our coding exercise.
Yep.
I really want to thank
Yeah.
you, Benjamin, for joining the stream and talking about all things GitHub Actions.
Mhm.
It was a lot. It was great talking with someone else. I know we've talked on stream like back and forth through chat, but like finally able just talking about
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
just learning more from it, from what you've gained and all the stuff that you've absorbed through parsing all
Definitely.
of that documentation.
Yeah, because I've been doing this for now, like I've said, like 13 months. So it's not something new to me, but like there is a lot to dive in. And I think that's why I was saying, like, I want to make it a resource. I want to make resources that someone could come in and pull down some files, add it to the repo, and they get automatic things automatically working rather than need to and it's good to know how everything works. But if you want to just get like a simple CI script to like build your code and test it whenever you make a push, it's good to have some resources that you can just pull from someone else.
Yeah. I guess before we depart, one question I have is for you, like, are you only working with GitHub Actions on your own personal projects, or do you use this at work also?
Yeah, so I've done personal projects. I've pushed some into I do a lot of work with Gatsby itself, like actually building portions of it. So we've actually built some actions in there, and we've actually been starting working using GitHub Actions at work for as well. So like using it all the way from like personal projects to open source projects to even stuff with work.
That's yeah. That's awesome. Like taking something that's full, like fledgling, and then learning so much about it, and then able to then take that knowledge and bring it into the workplace just to make things more streamlined. Only on
Yeah.
GitHub.
Yeah, because like
awesome.
for some of the things, we were using Travis on some of the tests, and for like our Windows tests, like some of the things took like 20 minutes, and we were able to like cut we were able to cut the times down from 20 minutes on average for Windows down to 15 minutes. So like that's a decent perf boost.
Yes. I might have to bring it up at where I work to see if we can start sneaking that in. If that's because
Yeah,
the CI process always take forever, and if we can get some performance boosts, potentially,
definitely.
yeah. Okay, thanks so much. And I will let you have the rest of your day and the weekend. So, yeah, have a great weekend. Yeah, Turkey Day's coming up soon.
It is.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'll see you on Twitch. And again, everyone that's watching, this is Benjamin Lannon, Lannon BR on Twitch, Twitter, GitHub, all the social medias. And so if you want to give him a follow and say hi to him if you've enjoyed the conversation we've had about GitHub Actions, please do so. Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Bye. All right, everyone. That is going to bring you the end of the stream. Thanks so much for everyone that's been lurking. I hope you did enjoy the stream. Always, if you enjoyed it, if you want to see any changes, if you want to know any more, feel free to give me any feedback. You can DM me directly at me on Twitter. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed it. I had a great time. I learned a lot, and it was. And if you want to know more about GitHub Actions again, feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Lannon BR, or just take a look at the wonderful website he had built, gars.dev. Yeah, make sure to throw in a nice link for that. If you want to follow along and learn more about GitHub Actions. There you go. Thank you, Leon and BR. Yeah, so that's gonna be it. And so have a great weekend, everyone. I will hope to see you in the chats again another day. And if you have ideas of content that you want to see on this stream, things that you want to learn, if you want to do some pair programming, reach out to me. Let me know. This channel, we definitely want to use this time to do outreach, help others, lift each other up, and grow. So if you want to see something out of this stream, tweet at me, tweet at the Coding Zeal channel, at Coding Zeal. Yeah. So until next time, everyone, have a good rest of your week. Get home safe. Enjoy the good weather. I guess this here in San Diego, we're gonna have good weather over the weekend. It was raining a couple days. Being in San Diego, I know. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Good night. Bye.